Okay, thank you. Good evening, and we will call this meeting to order. We will do a roll call of council members to establish a quorum. Trisha out there to here. Vicki Monica here. Leanna Glender here. Chelsea Parker here.
Laurel Hillward here.
Excellent. Thank you. Would one of you ladies like to read the school verse, please?
I'll read it.
Thank you, Vicki.
This is our school. May peace dwell here. May the rooms be full of contentment. May love abide here, love of one another, love of our school, and love of life itself. Let us remember that as many hands build a house, so many hearts build a school.
Excellent. Thank you, Vicki. That takes us to item 1.4. Do we have any agenda modifications? Hearing none. I was just making sure there was nothing I needed to pull on the consent agenda. Hearing none, that will take us to item 1.5, audience to address the council. Are there any audience members present, in person or on Zoom, that would like to address the Charter Council on items that are not listed on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, that will take us right into item 2, the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion when somebody is ready.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Laurel, for your motion. Do I have a second?
This is Trisha. I'll second.
Thank you, Trisha, with your second. I will call for the vote. Trisha, aye. Vicki,
aye.
Nana,
Leanna, aye.
Chelsea, aye. Laurel.
Laurel, aye.
Great, I'll approve. That takes us now into item 3, the faculty report. Nick or Sarah or both? Take it away.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everybody. Hold on a second. I'm going to navigate over. So we have a little bit of a different, it's just slightly different. It still is a slideshow put together by the teachers. But this one is rather than being about what's going on right now, Cheryl had everybody put together slides about the various field trips we do. So let me see. Is everybody seeing that okay?
No,
We see you.
Alex.
You still just see me. Oh, I know what I did. I know what I did wrong. Okay, here we go. There we go. Now you're seeing it, yeah?
Yes, there we go. Thanks, Nick.
Okay. So the field trips at Blue Oak and field trips in Waldorf schools in general are huge parts of the curriculum, and so it's just super important that the whole community is aware of them and knows how to support them and all that. So one of the first major field trips, the first overnight as it's usually thought of, is a 3rd grade field trip to some form of farm. It has changed over the years which one is everybody goes to. So here we have pictures of Miss Katie's class pulling lamb's quarters from garden beds at Grubb in 2022. Some more pictures of the farm field trip. Sarah, this is one that I've never done since I've never taught 3rd grade. So if you have anything to add about it.
Yeah, this is actually Kate's first 3rd grade class. They went somewhere out near Sacramento for their farm field trip. It's just really fun getting the kids out in the earth and doing stuff, which is what 3rd grade's about.
Yeah. Okay, great. And so some more from that field trip. And then in 4th grade, we have Miss Katie's class checking out a kookaburra at the Sacramento Zoo. So again, supporting the curriculum in 4th grade, the students are learning about the relationships between humans and animals. And Malakoff Diggins, which is a fantastic field trip to a state park, which is a preserved gold mining camp from when they were doing the hydraulic mining, which is of course horrible. And it actually led to some of the first environmental protection laws. California really led the way with that. And so the kids learn about that in addition to how to live back in the times, and they dress in the garb and they get to make all types of things, and it is a wonderful trip. And then in 5th grade, the students study botany. So one of the usual field trips is to go to Jug Handle on the coast and to go to the botanical gardens and they stay at this great farmhouse. And again, going back to that third grade thing, they work in the nurseries there, and it's a lot of fun. And they take this huge hike, and teachers usually choose different amounts of it to hike because it is a huge hike. If you hike, it's called the ecological staircase, and it starts at the coast and it goes all the way up to this thing called a pygmy forest. And anyway, it's a huge, wonderful hike, but it is rough. And then fifth grade, which I'm helping Sarah's class get ready for right now for the pentathlon, which is one of my favorite events that happens at the school. And so the kids learn to throw the javelin, the discus, they learn how to wrestle. And it's just a really great time for them to show off what it's like to be, a fifth grader. And it's really cool too, because they go and they get to meet students from other Waldorf schools. And usually they're the first kids from Waldorf schools they've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, the medieval games, which kind of has a similar feel to the pentathlon, and Shady Creek Environmental Camp, which is just such an amazing event. And again, at the medieval games, oftentimes they get to see kids that they went to the pentathlon with. And so that's a lot of fun. And with the environmental camp, there were students of mine who they went back to be counselors when they were in high school. So that's a really great trip. The Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which is just a fantastic opportunity for the kids to experience some live theater with, of course, great parks and everything in Ashland as well. And then in eighth grade, it's kind of become a tradition that the teachers go on some type of trip with the kids. And what this looks like looks different for each teacher as they finish the end of their journey. And so, yeah, so those are the major field trips in the school. And Sarah actually just did one, so she was going to talk to you all about that a little bit.
You have to stop sharing, Nick. When
Okay.
You can.
Yes, I can. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. I just had a little quick picture here. Instead of going to Jug Handle this year, we went out to the Forebay Aquatic Center, and we went to the Wildlife Center and the Chinese Temple, and all in Orville. So we got to stick by and see just sort of the landscape of what's close to home. Is the first overnight we've gone on in this class has ever gone on. And so really kind of for me, it's been almost 4 years since I've been on an overnight. So it was like exercising that muscle, relearning how to do an overnight, getting ready for it, kind of getting the kids prepared. A lot of them haven't spent a lot of time away from home in recent years. And so that was all new for them. And so that was a good experience. And then next year we are going to the Pacific Environmental Education Center, which is in Fort Bragg, and we'll experience our Jug Handle experience then as well. So that was just something that we just did last week. And I know the eighth grade, one of the eighth grades is on their trip right now, and the other one went on their trip last week. So overnights are starting to be a thing again at our school, which is really exciting. And other exciting news, state testing starts next week. So teachers are prepping and getting ready and trying to help all the kids remember everything they possibly can. So that's kind of what's going on in the world of teachers.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing that. It was definitely some fun memories looking through those, and then some sadness for the years that my kiddo missed for the field trips from COVID. So it's so nice to see everybody picking their overnights back up, because that's such a great experience. So thank you.
I loved your description too about using those muscles that you used to do for field trip. It's quite a job, and thank you.
It is, yeah. I was so tired that first day. I'm like, I want to go home. But it was really great. We had a great time.
Good.
That's so great. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Nick or Sarah? No? Okay, well, thank you so much. It's always nice to hear what's going on in and out of the classrooms. So thank you. All righty, well then cruising right into item 4, governance. We'll start with Vicki and the Finance Committee report.
The Finance Committee report. is very short, because the meeting was very short, because primarily because I had two things on the agenda, which I was unable to complete, the restructuring of the administrative executive salary schedule, and then also the administrator's evaluation. We just haven't been able to pull it together and get it going, but it's begun. And we really got it started today, the salary. And Laurel and I are gonna talk about when we're gonna sit down with the evaluation tonight. It's the first time I've been able to contact Laura, and she's a very busy woman. So, yeah, so that's the financial non-report.
And Vicki, I appreciate your heading it up and putting that necessary push into it, and apologize for my
Sure.
lack of availability.
No problem. Totally understand. You have a life.
All right, well, thank you, Vicki. Does anybody have any questions regarding the finance committee report or anything finance committee related?
Hopefully both of those items will be available by the next finance committee report, which is the second Tuesday of next month. So that's like
Almost
the
the end of
third.
the school year.
Crazy. Oh my gosh, it's May, yeah.
What I will add to that is Jim was very happy at the meeting, which is because we got some additional funds that he didn't expect. So he's
That's
very much-
When Jim's happy, there's money.
we are, there's an increase, I think, in sped or something that came earlier than expected, and so
That's
he
yay.
immediately
Thank
reached
you.
out to Pam and says they're not gonna need any more money this year.
Oh, good.
Yay.
So,
And it's not extra money, it was just early money.
Yeah, it was,
Okay, just.
it wasn't anything, I don't think so, it was more than he
With
anticipated.
the
us getting
cash
at this.
flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
Well, that's important.
Rectification versus.
Yeah, or it just arrived by later.
It arrived the day before or something. He was just, I've never seen him just quite so happy.
That's the best call to make is like, thanks, but no thanks, Cam.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
So it was great.
That's fantastic. Okay, great news.
So
Thank
that
you.
was that the? Yes, it's money over special ed, was it the 46,000? Or more than that?
I don't remember.
Okay,
precisely.
all right,
I
that's
just remember
something I
he was
wrote
happy
down.
And that maybe.
Thanks.
All righty, well, great. And then Kristen isn't here with the parent council report. Did anybody else attend that meeting that would like to report?
I did. I will
wonderful.
briefly talk about what was talked about.
Excellent.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Their budget at this point, and looking at the minutes as I'm speaking.
Sure.
So, we're talking about fundraisers, of course, clean canteen for Welch's class, things like that. Their current available funds are 16,208.83. They started the year with 13,475.
Great.
They have 29.75, but the rest has been the
Committed.
difference is the commitments.
Okay, great.
They are looking at how to better support staff appreciation days, so they have a list of, this excited me. A list of not just the teachers or the support staff, but everybody, they're looking at everybody and how to help support all that. So they've been, Amanda's done some work on that and they're supporting her. We have the Endangered Species Fair this weekend. We have a table there. Kristen Woods is planning to be there to support. We do not have a staff member yet, but we're working on it. But that is a replacement of it used to be the Endangered Species Fair. It is now some Endangered Planets, is that what it is? Or Healthy Planet Fairs. So they've changed it a little bit. What is awesome for Blue Oak is it always used to be in competition with the May Fair. And now they're focusing on Earth Day, so it will always be 2 weeks before.
Which is great. Yay.
Yay.
Now you don't have to pick which one you
I
go
know.
to.
Or when we're gonna have the May Fair. And
Yes.
a lot of work on the May Fair, a lot of talk about that work. And then the final big one is that they are working with Cal Java, and we actually got some notices out They have a Blue Oak Cal Java sale. If you buy from the Blue Oak your coffee from that, half of the proceeds go to the fundraiser.
That's great.
And we're
That's generous.
they are talking about using the proceeds from that fund to support field trips. So
Awesome.
feels like a real win, I think, little dance for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
That's the Cal Java that's just right down the street.
yeah.
Mhm.
I never go there.
So they have, I just saw the flyer yesterday, they have, one of those scan codes and you can scan it and go right there and buy your copy there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so great.
How did they talk about how the march for Miss Jennifer went? It seemed like last I heard, they were pretty much almost at there.
Yeah, they the fundraising for Jennifer surpassed what they anticipated.
Nice.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any questions on the parent council report? From the board or audience? Or anything to add? Great, good job, Susan. Very. All right, so Susan gets to keep the floor with the Equity and Inclusion Task Force report.
For a while, okay, we have not met as an equity inclusion task force for a while. We are still a needs of parent on that committee. But here's some things that are going on. We are working for next year and everything now is about next year. So if you have any questions, it's that we have 30 days left of school, so we're on the road to next year.
Yep.
We are realizing the need to plan further ahead to support the assemblies, so set the dates up and get other educational programs in to speak. So that's one of the projects we're currently working on. The pedagogical team is working with faculty to update the curriculum at a glance and to connect the novel sets with it. And they have a survey going out and work on that. So what I've asked is that if they want to change one of the novel sets for next year, then we can think about that now. So the town can purchase and part of the block plans in August. So that's, I've asked the teams, the grade level teams really to talk to each other. So first grade is going to sit down, second and third grade, and they're going to talk about what novel sets have worked or what they might want to change. And that sort of thing, so we can get that thing over the summer, and then the books will be ready for the fall.
I have a question. Regarding the assemblies, how much opportunity do you have to review I'm thinking you mean the outside presenters for the assemblies, and how much opportunity do you have to kind of vet that and have a pretty close notion of what they're going to present?
We haven't done all that many. The few that we've done, for example, was we've done dancing, for the Hispanic. So I haven't done that much of it.
They're more
yet.
cultural
They're
than
more
socio-political.
Yeah, we did for Black History. I think Nick spoke about some particular characters in Black history that were important.
Okay.
But we haven't had a lot of them come in so far, and that's part of what we want to do. Is because what we're finding ourselves doing is saying, oh, it's Black History Month. What are we going to do? And so trying to say for the year we'll have that,
Right.
and then we will have an opportunity to vet them.
Right.
But we've been
And I
too
think
close to the.
from what I've seen, when you have outside people, it's typically on the recommendation of a staff member. It's like, I know this person and this is, so there is also a level of vetting through a staff member as well, at least for what's happened so far. But yeah,
Admin should when they have.
absolutely.
That.
Yeah, it's a tricky, it's a challenge to navigate. These
It
things.
can be, and that's why
Can be,
that's why I'm wanting the task force to work on it and get it done ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we're not
Thank you.
rushing
Well,
or
that's
making errors at the last minute, so.
Great.
And one of the discussions too, as talking to staff, over the last couple of years, we've been focused on diversity, but also teachers have felt they really needed to address social emotional learning as well. So sometimes there's been a bit of a trade-off between those two subjects. And so we want to continue to look at that too, to make sure we are actually addressing both those issues consistently in our work and our curriculum.
That's good. All right, well, thank you, Susan. Does anybody have any questions for the Equity and Inclusion Task Force report? Seeing none, I will move us into item 4.4. Starting with the communicable disease policy second reading. So everybody should have had plenty of opportunity to review this as it is the second reading. And so if there are no questions or additional comments, then I will entertain a motion when somebody is ready.
I move to accept the communicable and infectious disease policy.
Great, thank you, Laurel. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, somebody's got to go.
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you, Leanna, for the second. I will call for the vote.
Laurel. Yes. Approved.
Chelsea, I. Leanna?
Aye.
And Vicky?
Aye.
Trisha, I. Great. Motion passes. And then that takes us to the second reading also of the healthcare emergencies policy. And again, we should have all had plenty of time to review this. But if there are any questions or comments, I will certainly entertain those. And if not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the healthcare emergencies policy.
Great, thank you, Vicky, for your motion. Do I have a second?
This is Trisha, I'll second.
Great, thank you. We'll go ahead and call for the vote. Trisha?
Aye.
Vicky? Aye. Leanna?
Aye.
Chelsea? Aye. Laurel?
Aye.
Great. That one passes. Item 4.4.3, health examinations, immunizations, and administration of medications policy. This is the first reading. I'm hopeful that everybody has had a chance to review this and bring any questions or comments that they may have. I just want to say that I really appreciate the work that goes into all of these policies, and it's been a lot because we're seeing, at least one to three policies on every agenda, and so I know the work that goes into that.
I'm gonna say, these sometimes feel like going through the motions on these things, but I believe in Willows, a child was recently given the wrong medication, and it was a pretty serious medication. So these policies are important to review and important to follow. So I'm glad it's before us.
Absolutely.
And then it's that, and I know your director does a great job of this, or our director, but disseminating that information and then following it after. So thank you. I know there's a lot.
And I appreciate this because, there's so many nuances, for this specific policy in this world for parents to navigate, for staff to navigate, so I think this is just super helpful. But does anybody have any questions or points of clarification, anything that they'd like to see changed?
Do you have any comments about it, Susan, or not?
Well, this is almost a catch-all final health, so that we now have 3 health policies. And that should finish that particular category of policy. So really appreciate Natalie Wren, our nurse, and her work to help edit and clarify things like, oh, this isn't required anymore. Oh, okay, things that is in everybody else's policy, but she's like, no, it's not in there anymore. So a lot of that work, and just feeling strongly as to how important this policy is, or the health policies, in supporting attendance and informing parents. And I think that's where my mind is with it more than anything. It's like parents need to know what we're doing when, and these policies are very important. So
It's like you said, updating to remove the things that are no longer requirements as well is so great, so that we can, constantly be holding the correct guidelines. That's great. All right.
So you put it on the bottom half. Thank you. I like that it's one page.
All righty, are there any questions or comments from the audience? None, and none from the board. Excellent. So we will
Well,
make the motion at the next.
in
meeting.
the last paragraph. The school staff who administer shall receive training. Is that, I assume that we pay for that. It's not, okay. It's not.
The epinephrine would include EpiPens, correct?
Where are the forms
That's the full
found?
title for EpiPen is
Hmm?
epinephrine auto.
Yeah, I thought so, but I never.
Known to everyone else as EpiPen.
So for the most part, the nurse does that training. She is working now and also getting them on video, so people can watch those trainings as well.
Yeah, well, that wasn't my question, but the forms that the parent would need to fill out or have filled out by the doctor. Wait, let me find it. Received a completed medication authorization form signed by the student's physician and a parent guardian. Those forms are available in the office or at the doctor's?
You're usually at the doctor's.
At the doctor's?
Yeah.
Okay,
Does that need to be?
a medication, yeah.
I think in the past, we've also had copies here, so I think if they come to the school nurse or go to the doctor, they'll be able to get that form in either place.
The parents are gonna show up saying, can you give my kids this Tylenol at noon? And then they're gonna find out they have a form that they have to fill out, the doctor has to fill out,
Right.
so.
The only thing,
It's usually in the parent handbook also, and
Good,
let know to the
good.
parents that they can't
Yeah.
just show up with medication. They do anyways,
Oh, they do,
but yes, they do all the time, but it's just Tylenol. That's great.
I certainly, not everything can be written in, we write these things broadly to kind of include things, but I'm just curious, looking back at a situation we had with a child with really serious type 1 diabetes and a very, very recent diagnosis. And I wonder if it might make sense to write something in, just something to the effect that should students present with a health issue not typically seen, staff will receive additional training. I mean, I'm thinking, I guess what I'm thinking is if you have a student who has seizures, you might not typically train staff to manage seizures or diabetic coma or whatever, but just like a line to say, should students have, and I'm kind of reiterating here, but should students have an unusual or not typical health issue, staff will be made aware and trained in them. Do you think it's?
Let's make a note and we can take it, what we have, of course, for someone with diabetes or serious asthma or something like that, is a health plan for them.
Okay,
So which includes training, which includes a lot more than training, like what data to track and for diabetes, it's pretty extensive.
Yeah,
To what you
it's-
do, if
yeah.
the numbers are off and
So by
so-
noting it in there, is it
yeah.
a kind of a reassurance to parents or a commitment if a parent were?
Well, I think it's just potentially something else, so let's look at it, to add that significant, health plans are developed
Just something
by the
unusual.
nurse for those
Yeah,
who
okay.
have a significant need.
Maybe it's just noting that it does get done. or something.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
and if I'm
And just ensuring,
advocating,
it's-
elaborating it, just.
and also on the flip side of that, ensuring that we word it in a way that doesn't sound like the entire staff will receive any sort of very specific
Yeah.
medical training. that they're.
Yeah,
you know, that's
when we were in that situation, we assessed who was around the student during the day.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I mean, so they were maybe a little bit overcovered even, you know.
Sure.
So,
No, and that totally makes sense, and I totally agree with having that additional training for any.
And I
staff
agree,
to help
it's
protect
better
their
if
children, but I want to make sure from
certain
a
people are designated.
legal
not, but-
perspective, I want
yeah.
to make sure we're also protected.
Yeah.
In the event.
Good point.
So to word it, to ensure that it's worded in a way that does
Mhm.
not. Infer that if we have a child with a special medical need, that our entire staff is gonna get medical training.
Mhm.
Right, but that's my thought is.
That careful
focus on the
balance.
fact that there's a plan
Yes,
for
Mhm.
students with
Absolutely.
significant. And there may be better words than significant.
and I
but,
think we
uh,
can even
medical
put,
issues that-
I think you can even put that, I mean, that there, you know, that a plan will be created with proper. Training for any student with a medical
Yeah.
condition, because that would be a 504 plan, right?
Mhm.
So any student with a medical condition would have a medical plan.
Right.
That would then outline the specifics of that.
As long as the parents share that, yeah.
Right, but if the parents
Yeah,
don't share
if
that
they
their
don't
child has
share what's going on
diabetes, then
with the kid,
we
yeah.
wouldn't know.
I had a student who came into my classroom with severely manic depressive. And it was just really disruptive to begin my school year. And she eventually went to a different classroom. But nobody told me until we got to the parent
No.
conference that the
Yeah.
kid was, you know, on heavy medication.
I know, I wish.
Yeah, it was hard. It was
Yeah,
hard,
that
but the
there was
parents
something in
were
the policy
shooting,
that
so they
required-
didn't.
Yeah, and it's really challenging too, because people's privacy is at stake too,
Yeah.
and yet,
Mhm.
their safety is critical too, so it,
Careful balance.
you know, and there probably is wording that exists that says that really well.
Yeah, that's what
Legally
I'm-
tight, yeah.
Well, Alex,
But, anyway, and I didn't
remind me
mean
to
to
look at it.
make a big deal of it.
Good.
All right.
I'd like to announce to everybody I'm having immunotherapy on my forehead for skin cancer.
Oh,
My son is teasing me that I'm a drug user, and these are good source.
No.
No.
I
that's my
thought-
son.
I thought that was a sunburn because it's bee season, so there's that. I just assumed you'd spend more time out in the sun than I have.
Makes your skin look young after, so I'm all about it. So,
Well, better to treat it.
Yeah.
Come to it. All right, well, if there are no further questions, comments, or additions
And thank you
to.
for- Yeah, Chelsea. Okay, and that was.
Yep, for 4.4.3, then we will move into 4.5, and just a reminder that that policy will be a second reading and up for a motion at the next meeting, so. Yeah. Right, item 4.5, the Chico Fire Rescue Stakeholders Meeting. Susan, I can only assume that this is, you're going to share more about.
It just, Buck went to the meeting in order to keep us aware of emergency services and so forth
Great,
in there, and they shared this wonderful letter, so here's this wonderful letter.
Nice.
Yeah, we're participating.
Community agencies
good.
working together. That'd almost be an interesting one to share with students. Some of the students, you know, to see if things work.
oh, yeah. Well, that's great, and I was present on campus for today's fire drill and got to learn some of the new ways that those are being done in schools, and I
Yeah,
really
that was
appreciated getting
interesting.
to experience that. Yeah, thank you, getting up to experience, and so I really like, yeah, so I really like. I like how those are being done and getting to hear, you know, a familiar voice and not just the fire alarm, but that combination of, I think is really, yeah, both, you know, calming for anybody in this school, but then also informative. So I think that's really great.
Are you
For
also,
those who don't know, the fire alarm goes off and then an announcement comes across the loudspeaker that states, you know, whether And I mean, she stated it was a drill and that, you know, we smell smoke, so you'll need to evacuate, you know, so,
You know what was,
yeah, so that, you
but
know,
I'm just like that.
And then if it wasn't a fire drill, and it was a different message. it was
yeah,
just
instead of an
fire drill.
alarming, yeah. and
You
You don't
do,
mention the
yeah,
smoke.
drills,
Yes,
too.
no
Right?
smoke, so then you shelter in place versus
Mm,
shelter versus evacuating.
Last time
Nine.
anyone was killed in a public school fire was 1954, I think. And I just mentioned that because now the safety drills are more critical than fire drills, and
Sadly,
that's a sad thing.
Yeah, it's an entire change of the mentality of what we need to do for
Yeah.
drills. And so that's, you know, part of our two different fire drills. One is to stay in place is in case somebody's pulled the alarm. When there's not a fire drill in order to get everyone outside, because we know that's happened. And then the other is if it's actually a fire drill, and we get out. And then we train staff primarily, focus on them with the intruder drills, with thinking about what's your plan really, because it will depend so much on what's actually happening. And
Sure.
That's harder and scarier and much more effective. So it's so really thinking about what you as a teacher in charge of the children that are with you are going to do in that case.
So again, you know, tough topic, but do you have, this is curiosity and maybe a little bit of a suggestion, but a place where it, you know, we all want the children safe first and foremost, but on the other hand, we need administration safe so they can continue to communicate both, you know, within the structure and with emergency personnel and law enforcement. So do you have a plan in place to keep you safe? I mean, I could see you, Susan, rushing out into the hall and gathering kids into your, you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
do you,
Well, this, two things, we have a dedicated cell phone for emergency services.
Okay.
So that's who the police are to call if they need to tell us a lockdown, and it's
Okay.
also the phone we use to communicate
okay.
out with. So we've set that aside, and someone at all times is
Is
responsible
monitoring
for that phone.
Okay,
So if it's primarily Alex, if she's not here, she passes it on to one of the other office staff members. And our school, as it's set up right now, is somewhat blessed with a set of offices that have no windows,
mhm,
which are kind of a pain for most days, but they're also very safe.
yeah,
So the front office staff or staff can go into the conference room across the hall. They're behind a couple of locked, you know, 2 or 3 locked doors at this point.
and that's even a possibility to get children in there.
Yeah, any
Yeah.
children that would be in the hall would go into one of those offices in that middle
Mhm.
area where there's no one to come through it, through
Mhm.
a window. into
That crossed my mind because, and certainly was admirable, but there was a recent school shooting and one of the people killed was the chief administrator. And
Pretty common.
yeah, and I thought, wow, you know, is
Yes.
somehow that communication with the outside and communication with the staff and personnel and is critical too, you know.
Yeah.
and-
all right, well, great,
that's-
thank you for that,
Tough topic.
that information, that came out of this, and that I'm glad that Buck had the opportunity to attend and have that community engagement as well. Does anybody else have any questions on the Chico Fire and Rescue Stakeholders Meeting? Hearing none, then we will move into item 4.6, kindergarten marketing. I received my postcard in the mail today. Yes, I did, and there's a kindergarten soup recipe on the back, so I recommend checking your mailbox. That is quite a gift.
Makes me want to adopt the kindergarten.
Yes, I was a little disappointed that the kindergarten bread recipe is not on the back. I'm just saying.
That is the winner. So we do with both of our kindergarten classes are full, and we have a waiting list.
Great.
A significant amount of TKs, however, which is a little bit of concern, but not a huge one. But still, the hope for the school is to have 3 kindergartens so that we can really address TK as it grows. And so we went ahead and put this flyer out again for letting people know, because we also know right now people are still, you know, there are those in the fall that have made that decision and they're ready to go. They're on the waiting, there are 2 or 3 waiting lists, quite possibly.
Mhm.
And then there are those that are still wondering what to do. So we wanted to put this out again. To let people know that, yeah, we're still accepting applications for students.
And
So
I think too, even though we are currently, sitting at full with a wait list, I think this also offers a great opportunity to just share with the community that we're here and kind of some of the things that our school is about. And so I think it's a great opportunity, not just for getting students, but also just for engaging the community. And I love the recipe gift that goes out with the
yeah.
advertisement. So even if you don't have a kindergartner, you could still make soup.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked really great. Very, very
We
high.
should just trademark the bread recipe and that would maybe bring us in enough royalties. Support, like our field trip.
there we go.
Yeah.
Recipe book.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. That'd be a fun little fundraiser.
Yeah.
Kindergarten soup recipes and bread.
Kindergarten recipes, period.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
beans, I've heard the beans are very good.
Yeah.
I said,
And the
and the
quinoa.
kindergartner, he had to tell me how great the beans were. So
My quinoa, but they will eat teacher Cheryl's quinoa. So,
Butter.
yeah, maybe that's.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the
So we
difference.
can.
That's why everything in kindergarten tastes good.
Yeah.
I used to volunteer in the kindergarten classroom. There's a lot of butter in everything.
Oh.
Say burn it. All right.
Yeah.
Great. Does anybody have any questions before we get too sidetracked? On the kindergarten marketing? It's a cute little face.
We just leave that face up. For a while.
All right, well, Susan, since you've already got the floor, you might as well continue to have the
Just keep
floor.
on it.
The
All right.
executive director's report.
Okay, well, there's 2 parts to the executive director's report. One is my usual, and then Amanda is going to present her plan on improving our attendance. So I will.
Approving attendance.
Attendance.
Great.
As you said, our attendance, so we can say.
I know that. I was like,
Great. So my first thing I started working and practicing active supervision. I walk around the school every morning, just to check and make sure things are in place. And so I took some time over the last few weeks to chat with the students and do what's called active supervision, which is you walk around the playground and you check on how things are going and talk to the kids. So this is some of the things I learned. That all about Dungeons and Dragons and fencing. That there's fencing and Dungeons and Dragons. It's quite a conversation. Weekend plans for 8th grader, including Mario Brothers 2, which is better than Mario Brothers 1, and we don't really understand why Mario Brothers 1 is trending, because it's really just not as good. So
we're talking about the original Mario Brothers. I agree.
Okay, so there we go. Just had to work really hard, but got a 7th grader to say hello to me.
That is me.
I looked at that and I was.
Rugby.
That's like Robbie 7th grade.
Yes.
Somebody.
Where the warmest place on the playground is in a cold morning. About building sandcastles during CARD, and then a critique of the sandcastle that was built during CARD. Then just the happy faces in kindergarten, and then a discussion, this is my last one. Which came first, chicken or the egg? No, it was dinosaurs. They had a pet dinosaur with feathers came before the chicken or the egg. So just so you know.
I like that.
Anyway,
Well,
yeah,
and the
so.
newest one from 8th grade is the daily countdown till the end of the school year.
Ah.
8th graders are very excited.
They're really ready
They're ready for
to
high
move.
school.
What's funny is that they'll get to the last day of school and then the realization hits of like. It's big and scary.
Not home anymore.
No, 8th graders are funny.
Last month, one of our parents came on and talked about the Walls and Stalls program for
Yeah.
the upper grades. And so 2 of the classes have taken that on and
It's so
are
great.
moving forward with that. We are having a community talk for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders on vaping and tobacco and marijuana. The Butte County Office of Education has a prevention staff, and so they're coming to make that talk, and then we're also talking along with that about a series of talks next year, and so having them and others, but having them come probably twice next year as well, just to continue to keep that information out there. We forget that if we don't communicate this information, the children are learning it from somebody they shouldn't be learning it from.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so that kind of thinking is where that's coming into play. We are rolling downhill. We have finished getting into next year, so everything we talk about as well, and next year we will. Enrollment is ended for this year, so no new students, no new independent study packets will be going out this year. Staffing report, we're beginning to work on a number of positions for next year, and I'll have more about that next month. Intent to return forms have gone out and have been returned. And we do have a number of classes with waiting lists this year, so that's part of our goal. Registration days have been planned for August 9th and 10th. We are also starting to begin to talk about our in-service plan for next year. So I'm feeling good about that because it's like where we really should be this year. And it's nice to be thinking now for what we're going to do in August. So that feels good. Spring reflections and annual visit. This is our authorizer, Chico Unified, checks in with us every spring, asks us a series of questions. And Tina Keen, who is our contact, and I had a really good conversation about a lot of the things that are going on with students in every school as we return from COVID and really re-socialize them in a way. And they have the new community schools grant, and we have it. So we had a nice long conversation. They were very excited about us having it. They have it for 4 of their schools. And
Wow.
we're really excited that we would be participating with that.
So on campus, a school within a school here? or-
So the community school process, and you and I have to think differently, because it's
Yeah,
not the
okay.
community school
okay.
that we hear.
Sorry.
It's because I've had to reframe what a community school is, basically alternative at high school. So that's a community school, that's what we're used to. Well, that's not it anymore. It is now focusing on social emotional learning and bringing the community, better connecting with the community around us
Okay,
for the
got it.
school.
Thank you
So
for
it's
that clarification.
additional funding, and what we have right now is an implementation grant, but the long-term, the next step of an implementation grant is 500,000 to directly serve students. So we talked about increasing counseling or solidifying our counseling, being able to provide money for transportation, gas cards, and things like that for low-income families. All of that will go in. And basically, we're talking to Tina also, the fact that we have our higher percentage of low-income students is why we are. We probably why we got that grant when others might not. So they're thrilled that we have it. I'm thrilled that we hopefully be able to work with them on some projects. I put the hint out that I really want to work with the what is the bus system here called?
Oh, Beeline?
Beeline, yeah,
Yeah.
we really want to work with Beeline to actually have potentially discounted cards and
Oh, great.
things.
It's a great thing for
Yeah,
parents too, to
yeah.
get them here.
So that we can use the bus system, because Chico Unified doesn't have a bus system really either.
More effectively.
So, how can we use the bus system to bring, they have for specific students, they do have a bus system, but they don't. So Glenn County, right,
Yeah.
rural, we
Yes.
have, everybody gets a bus, including the people in town who get picked up,
Yeah.
I mean, so
That
we have a
that
bus
look on
system.
my face was like me thinking, because I live in a neighborhood that the I'm regularly sitting waiting behind the school bus because there are multiple houses in my neighborhood that
Uh-huh.
have bus service from Chico Unified. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
but just
I
a
guess not
general,
everybody has it here.
yeah, just in general, and that was a real aha to me this year.
Yeah.
Chico Unified doesn't have a bus system
Mhm.
either. So, and, we went through all the reasons why they don't, which part of it is they have good neighborhood school systems, so that's why. But,
Yeah, I remember when I was in school in Chico Unified, I took the bus, but only because I was Form 10 from my neighborhood school to a further away school because they were impacted. But I had to get the bus at my neighborhood school.
right,
and then they would- Yes, and then they would take me to the school that wasn't in my neighborhood. So they didn't pick me up at my house.
So things like that, see, how can we really, get,
And that's a
It's a little
great,
better.
a great argument for that too, is that. Our rural kids, because Chico is not strictly speaking rural, but they go off to university or a job somewhere. And they've never used public transportation, and so it's a good.
yeah,
it's
it's,
true. Yeah,
and it's a good system, we have a bus stop right here, so.
Yeah, that is nice to have it right in front of the school.
So that's my general report, if you don't have any questions about that, if you don't have any questions, we'll turn it over to Lynn.
Right. Any questions about the executive director's report? No? All right, well, great.
Well, hello, I'm Amanda. Sorry I haven't made it here. Kids, family, daycare. That's the biggest thing. So this is attendance. Yeah, Alex, it's perfect. It may not be formatted. I formatted it so I can print it, so it's easy. But basically this will be eventually the attendance plan
There it is.
for next year. All of these numbers are current as of end of March, so they are almost a month difference. But I wanted to solidify those numbers to kind of plan out for next year. So over the next 2 years, we're looking at getting up to an average of 96% attendance rate. You can see currently we're in the 90s for almost all
good.
grades, which is fantastic.
Significant improvement over other years, so I'm just really curious.
Well, and even post-COVID,
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
I think people feel like showing up to anything is optional post-COVID.
I agree. So our biggest thing would just be for next school year, getting everyone's overall percentage to 94% or increasing by at least 2%. And then I'm working on the tardies. Tardies are a little bit trickier to track through Aries, and just with improvements. So we will be focusing on attendance overall, and then our big push will be tardies for next year. So if you're here at school on time, it's gonna cover the absences and then obviously getting students here on time. And then we are going to focus on the independent study at the very bottom. We've got about 44% returned for the overall year. So we will hope to get that up higher for next year. And a lot of that will have to do with engagement, attendance engagement, and parents engagement as well.
One of the things just to consider, especially like, I feel like the TK challenge and even kindergarten challenge is parents not fully recognizing the impact that to the school of their child not being there. We as parents, I think more about our own child and the impact to them and not necessarily outside of that particular tiny little human cutie. But one of the things that I know there's been a lot of research on is people that sign a compact or I don't want to call it
Commitment kind of.
yeah, like a commitment, I don't want to call it a contract, but like a commitment that, kind of lays that out. And like, I understand that the expectation is that my child would not miss more than X number of school days, unless, medically necessary or something like that, that kind of even has a little bit of information about the independent study and kind of about the why that also has a signature on it. And then even up towards your middle schoolers, you can even have them with the students themselves. That helps them to understand their importance and get to, sign something. And obviously none of it be legally binding, but that buy-in, that awareness, and not putting your name on something and like that agreement that is specific to the attendance. And then when you have those conversations with parents, hey, what's going on? Remember, we have this agreement and I want to know like what's preventing you from keeping up your end kind of thing. I mean,
How can we help?
obviously, yes, obviously in a way that it's much more supportive of the parent than like, we're doing our part, what about you? But, reminding them of all of those important things that they've signed as recognizing are also important and agreed to. So
Apologies for presenting this as a quick story, but I lived in a neighborhood where there were kids with less than, and my son went to school with a kid and we'd pick the kid up every morning and he was always not ready. And I just said to the parent, I'm happy to pick him up, but it's stressful for my son not to be in school on time. I will double back and pick your kid up. Something about that, of course, was a little, it wasn't made to embarrass her, but she started trying to get him ready. So what she quickly discovered is he was far less resistant to getting to school with 10-15 minutes to hang out and play than he was to show up in the office every day. So sometimes maybe something fun happening or, before school or, that changes over time or a routine that the kids like. And also letting parents know, okay, you're struggling to get your kid ready, but this is what goes on in school. And sometimes the kids will buy in a little bit more. It was really amazing, the change. And she was like, I can't believe it. He likes to go to school now. It's like, he's got 10 minutes on the playground with his buddies.
it's
and
less
he's
stressful for him.
starting his day in the office.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's something that I'm working with Alex on, partnering with Acorn Monthly and doing an attendance push, whether it's creating healthy routines at home or, practicing the night before. Let's just pick your clothes out for the next day. And it works primarily for the younger grades because 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
we had kids that came out of chaos and rolling up their homework and putting it in their shoe. That when I was at Phoenix, roll up your homework or whatever, your permission slip and, something, because they didn't live in the house where leave it on the sofa table or whatever, and, anyway.
So the one thing you knew they were gonna have to do is put their shoes on right morning, so
Yeah.
that's where the papers were.
Yeah, you're gonna wear shoes, they'll probably have one pair. The other thing too, I wonder if schools have ever used, how just about every school now has a phone you thing, you can phone you with a message. And I wonder if anybody's ever used that and made it specific, like if this group lives this far from the school, good morning, and.
Good morning, get
remember-
out the door.
Yeah, remember today's blah blah day or something, it could be. Teachers could record them for grade levels, but just a thought. I feel for those kids who. I was for a time one of those kids with a mother catatonic in bed and.
We're
Yeah,
even
yeah.
using one of those things at the end of each month that gives the attendance percentage for the school or their class or something like that. And then an encouragement of like, let's bring it up,
Yeah.
like to get that robocall.
You guys are hitting everything nail on the head on the next couple slides.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay.
Finish your presentation.
Outside of that, please.
On the
Clearly.
independent study.
I assure you, none of us is trying to take your job. Just in case we-
I would say maybe one of the most helpful things, just with, we've done independent study quite a bit. And it's always like when you come back, remembering to turn it in, but the school doesn't follow up on it. I don't think I've ever got a follow up. And maybe that's because I try really hard to turn it in on time because I know how it affects the school.
Because you're part of the 45%. Thank you.
So, but I don't know if there's a process to like follow up, like if it hasn't been turned in within a week or 2 weeks, so. That's it. Next slide.
Yeah, that would be part of the attendance plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
And that's 2 slides down, we're close. So one of the incentives would be a no tardy party. So instead of focusing on students coming to school every day and focusing on the attendance piece of it, we'll focus on the tardies. That way it'll go hand in hand and won't be as targeting or limiting, I would say. So I've got 4 essentially quarters where we would mark those tardies. So 2 or less tardies during that time period gets you attendance to the no tardy party. Obviously, like medical appointments and documented appointments are completely excusable. These are some tentative themes that I have planned for next year. So the first quarter would be carnival games, something highly engaging, something that we can hopefully still utilize outside with, depending on weather. Who knows? This last year has been rough. And then, movie and popcorn, glow stick party, and outdoor water party, which we can include local stakeholders, the fire department, see if we can bring that in. But my hopes are that each party, we will add more and more participants to. So really pushing this, pushing the start of it for next year.
Just a thought too is, I mean, the goal is to have like the whole school there, right?
Right.
But then whoever's not there is basically in detention, kind of like they're held out.
What do
and
they do? if they're
what
not-
did-
What are they gonna do
Yeah,
while everybody's
yeah.
outside at the water party?
Yeah, so just having the contingent of where everyone else is. When all their friends are out having a glow stick party.
Yeah, I struggle with that a little bit because some of the kids, well, a lot of the kids who don't get to school, and especially younger children, it's totally beyond their control. And so maybe setting percentage goals for classes and then individual classes and moving that up. And then where your class can do it, but the only way they can do it is for those of you who are not here, not getting here to start coming. So encourage you and maybe problem solve it as a class or something, because that's a tough one for
That's a parent.
that's a tough one. We had a little
Yeah,
girl
how are
used
you
to
gonna
get herself
care?
ready and without an alarm clock, and she'd be sitting there, it'd be 10 o'clock on the res, wishing somebody to take her to school. And it was solely her responsibility, and she was a primary age kid, so maybe massaging that a little bit.
Well, we can look at those, we have some of that other stuff in there too.
Yeah.
What historically we've done with the tennis parties is the classroom teacher is still in the classroom and they're still there. So there's everything else a normal day, it's just that some of the kids get pulled.
It's nice to do whole school stuff.
If we get to, if we get to a point where we have 98% of our kids
Oh my
are
gosh.
in the party, then definitely think differently.
Well, and like for PBAS parties right now, it's happening during recess time. So it's not necessarily taking, like, the students are still actively doing something, and what I've done in the past with various schools that I've been at. Is the students are actively working towards it, they're working towards this goal. And the more they see their peers participating in it, the more they're excited for it. I know it's hard to get kids out of bed nowadays, and it's a motivator.
Yeah.
And if they see their peers going and participating, that they're going to be encouraging and relaying that message home to parents to hopefully that will spur their momentum on getting their kids to school.
When I did family literacy with young children, 5-year-olds. They actually we would have events at the library, and they were the ones that gave their parents come. We need to go, we need to go, we need to go.
Yeah.
So I think of that too.
Children are very
The
motivating.
children do have a,
For some
yeah,
influence, yeah.
they do have influence too, and so if they want to be here, they will work on their parents, which is probably the most effective.
We need to hook them with really good party early in the year.
Yeah.
That's
Well, something else that could be fun too, in addition, or like along with these, is kind of maybe like sneak preview type thing where you just pick random days, and right at the beginning of school, there's like a mini party and you don't know what day it is, but if you're late, you miss it. And so it could be like that you do some sort of fun, like
Pop quiz.
extra recess time that has, like, or whatever, some sort of fun, like, guess what? Today we have the popcorn machine on the playground and everybody gets popcorn before they go to class, and then.
That's really
I think,
effective.
or fun little things that even if you're tardy every day, except for that day you happen to make it to school on time, you get to be a part of that. And then it's like that. Well, I want to come early. I want to come early every day, because what if it's popcorn day?
That's really effective, and I was in a school with a very challenging attendance situation. And I would walk into a class and just distribute maybe like pencils or erasers or something. And then for the older students, other things that were of a little more interest to them. It was usually a drawing for something a little higher value. And kids would say, well, Susan's not here today. Can I take her? And I say, oh, miss school, miss out. I'm so sorry. I hope she's here next time. And you never got the item if you weren't there. And then having a little sign that says miss school, miss out, and placing it just in different places in the classroom where they're kind of aware of it. It's kind of subliminal condition.
I think you should have an option somewhere. For. The most improved.
That's on here too. You guys are just.
Oh, sorry.
You're just really high.
We've had these discussions before.
No, because it's hearing in multiple.
Yeah,
Hopefully it will work. So
you have our support.
this is the start of kind of focusing on some of the parties and leading into attendance. Starting, well, next month, because we're already in May, I'll be sending out some, you can flip to the next one. I'll be sending out some self-guided packets to particular families that are struggling having their kids here on a consistent basis. And there will be some sort of, don't want to say reward, but incentive to getting it filled out and turned back in. So it'll look like who's your support system, who's around you, what are the problems that you're having, just getting your kids here. And just identifying some of those, and then using those packets come August, September to really dive deeper into a thought out plan, well thought out plan with the families and the students and the teachers. And continuing those checkpoints throughout the school year. And then obviously the making adjustments as needed and kind of following up with students starting at the beginning of the year. So we can work on the ones who have been here and who have had a history of low attendance. And then for those new families that come in, we can develop those plans on an as needed basis. And there's just some ideas on what those plans could look like, focusing on the short term, focusing on really, like, they're here 5 days out of the week, like, let's celebrate that, however that may look. So getting some of that family buy-in and having them sit down and really look at who their tribe is, who are their people here, who are their outside school members that can help assist them, and then we can fill in the gaps as needed. So just starting those plans now, and then continuing them into the next school year. The next slide is just, I hyperlink everything, so if you ever get anything from me, click on everything, because everything is hyperlinked. So these are just different forms that I have pulled together that will be sent out to families. And then just the last couple slides, again, everything that you guys have been reiterating. So we're going to focus on sending home paper awards monthly for good attendance, and then for improved attendance as well. And in the past, I'd say 2 months, we've seen very, very high improved attendance rates, which is an awesome sign. And I know parents like the recognition as well. Like, it's not just the students, it's the parents for getting everyone here. So recognizing parents and students. And then this is where you guys were talking, kind of alluding to the percentages and having it be a team-based thing. Go for it.
So I recognize that the goal is to improve attendance. So with the good attendance, that's like, just to clarify and make sure, that's for any student that has hit that percentage, right? Okay. And then improved attendance is
Improved attendance.
they get an award, but maybe not the fun pencil or the item, right? And
More
so-
just recognition.
Okay. No, that's good. And I like that. And I don't want to be like the naysayer, but I also recognize like that my son was in a situation where I think he had perfect attendance until like 7th grade. Because he didn't want to miss school because his friends were. And but he would, especially like with behavior things or things like that, he was the kid that also noticed like, well, that kid never does this. And the one time, like now all of a sudden they're getting rewarded or, you know, whatever. And he was like, well, wait a second, how come I'm not, you know, I do it every day or, you know, I show up every day. So I like that we're rewarding both. similarly, but also slightly differently once you've achieved that. Like you still get recognition for heading that way. And then you get like the
We did,
next. once
we
you've
did the
gotten
top
there.
end as a range though, so the kids wouldn't show up sick, you know,
Right.
like
Yes.
it was, I can't remember if it was.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it
98,
needs to be
yeah.
perfect. I like the good
Yeah.
attendance and I like it being, over whatever percentage. Like, I don't think it needs to be 100%. He was really fortunate that he only got sick over holidays. I was less fortunate because he got sick over holidays.
I know I said a lot and I really appreciate the work you were doing, but one thing we did that was sort of effective was the AAA awards. So attitude's everything and every day starts with an attitude. You got to show up, so attendance, and then the last was academics, and that way, those kids who are never going to hit an academic, because I think academics, I don't believe in inflated awards for academics. All you're doing is lying to the parent and the child, and I mean, it's okay not to be super in academics, but that we called it the AAA awards, and it began with attitude, and it began, and then attendance, and I'll share this with you because in the classrooms we have the A plus B equals C, attitude plus behavior equals consequences. So and you control that. You control those first two, so you can control the third. Because, and I'm talking the kinds of kids Susan knows I taught. If you say what's a consequence, they will say to you, it's when I get in trouble for doing something. And we want to flip that and have them understand, consequences can be really awesome. And so
Consequences, the
attitude
result
plus
of your
behavior
actions,
equals consequences. Thank you. I liked it.
And this is all at this point, it's not in place yet for next year, and adjustments
Great
can be
stuff.
made as the year progresses. It's really just focusing on the students want to be here. COVID changed a lot of that, and made it kind of
That's great.
optional. So we're hoping to encourage everyone to want to be back at school and not just technology and on a computer 24/7.
Should get some coffee cards for those parents that really step up,
All about the coffee and the
Coffee cards, yeah.
I will spear
From Cal's office. Then,
Yeah.
see, we get a.
Okay.
And nowadays, kids are so competitive and doing class competitions with attendance percentages as a whole, so they're working together towards that team focus. And doing a traveling attendance trophy that would be announced at assemblies. Trying to figure out what that trophy could look like. So I've done golden keyboards for like computer class, or a golden microphone for music. So
Alarm clock.
A golden alarm clock.
I was thinking a card.
A golden calendar. And
And
I think
Say a golden, like,
get
a
duplicates,
retro
because if you have
alarm clock.
classes.
Yeah, like a
tonight,
big
Bells
Mickey
on the
Mouse
side.
bells on the
Yeah,
top.
and just get some gold spray paint and
Don't
crazy.
Yeah, don't
Hot
tell
glue.
them, have spares, so if class is tied, they don't know that, but then like, we have two.
Right.
And if everybody ever gets one, we're having a party.
Well, and posting those in the main lobby, the main
Sure.
front office lobby, so they can see percentages
Yeah.
throughout, and we can post them weekly, and then
That's
they
great.
motivates their peers to come to school the following week, pending any illnesses come January, February time.
Can you go to, like, they're starting at an old trophy and take off the top and just spray paint a gold alarm
Okay,
clock and
yeah.
hot glue it on?
Alarm clock, I had thought hard, and that did not pop in my head, I was thinking travel, I was thinking cars, and I was thinking of bus, but we don't have buses, so
Yeah.
that wouldn't work. And then just really focusing on the drive to be here. We want students to want to be here, and then that'll impact their academics, it'll positively impact their academics and their behavior, because they're clued in, they know what's happening.
I love the fact that you want to help parents who struggle with it to problem solve it, because, I mean, it might be a neighbor getting their kid, walking them to
Yeah.
the bus, not every parent can do that.
Well, and we're lucky here with the community that each classroom has.
Yeah.
And everyone gets to know each other very well and bond. And
Yeah,
so we can lean on to some of that as some of those supports. Coming from military background, I never have anyone around. So having to really truly lean into others is tricky and challenging for people, but with the way Blue Oak is centered and how the classrooms work and the community is, I think once they realize that asking for help is okay.
Yeah,
it
and
can
I
be very
think,
impactful.
I think that's also where it's really nice that like the survey or questionnaire or whatever that you were talking about is nice because it's a lot easier to respond and share your needs than it is to ask for help with them. And so like if somebody asks you, like, where are you at with these things? And then offers help where the gaps are. It's a lot easier to accept that help than it is to say, I need help. You know, so I think that also changes the narrative and yeah, and makes those resources more acceptable to people who struggle with asking for help. Right.
Well, and even allowing them to do it on their own time first, like
Mhm.
prior to meeting, it takes away the spotlight on them.
Yeah.
And this way, they're just bringing something to the meeting opposed to having to come up with answers on the spot.
I think it also makes people think about who are my support people? Like who is the neighbor that's
Yeah,
home when I
yeah.
have to leave for work early? Who's the neighbor that could walk my kid to the bus stop?
Mhm.
You know, or whatever, like. I think it helps you to recognize.
Getting
those.
into the team mentality.
That's great.
We
I
encourage it with our students, but
I have a kid that likes to be an hour early to school and I get a ton of pressure in the morning to hurry up and get out the door. And it's motivated by friends. Once get to school, hang out with friends, have fun.
Yeah,
And same thing after school. Please don't pick me up right after school. So I didn't do it. But it is, there's a lot of motivation when the kid wants to get out the door.
Can't imagine where he got his desire to spend so much time with his friends.
well, that's what we want to foster and encourage with everyone. Like, we want you here, we want you to be here, and when you come and you're enjoying school, then you're awake. First thing.
Yeah, you've heard me say that, all of this stuff before, but I read one time about a school that was working on attendance and, what they did, they put every kid's name on a Post-it around the room, if you heard this. And then the entire staff from, you know, janitorial, whatever, they went around and they marked if they had an encounter with the kid. And they targeted the kids that had no or the fewest interactions. And it would even be, and what I liked about it too is the equitability and power of a staff, not like, you know, maybe the janitor would go out of their way and say, hey, I see you walk by here every day. Can you help me put the flag up or something like that? And they had a real significant increase in attendance, but it was just hitting on kids. So when a kid was on that campus, somebody who typically saw him was going to say, oh, I'm so glad you're here today. I was thinking about you, or just those very personalized encounters with staff on a campus, you know.
When I would say most of the staff here do utilize a lot of
This is a different kind
No, I
of
know.
school, yeah.
But it's refreshing to see and just
Yeah.
hearing the different connections that students have with staff members around here. And I know I celebrate one student really hard. He gets very embarrassed every single time, but he loves it when I celebrate that he's here.
Yeah.
So it's just being more intentional on.
He's like, I'm so embarrassed, but do you see me here?
Right.
I'm right.
As he
Like,
leans
I'm gonna-
forward.
I'm embarrassed.
Right past you, but it's
A couple of times, because you didn't say anything the first time.
encouraging them to be here and it's
Yeah,
encouraging
that's
them
great.
positive interactions.
So I'll stop now, but I want to share later with you personally some sneaky things
I love
we
it.
did. Sneaky
Works for me.
things.
Great.
yeah.
Always open to it. The last couple of slides, there's a lot of thoughts on attendance and I truly just didn't know this is my miscellaneous slide. Truly just don't know where to put some of these ideas. So, you know, smaller, just putting a sign outside that we flip at 8:15 once students are here. You know, we appreciate you being in time dropping your child off. And then on the flip side, Try your
You
best.
gotta show up.
please try your best to get your child here on time tomorrow. Just those little tokens of appreciation, like I said, getting out the monthly acorn tips and tricks, and just staying on top of that parent communication. And some truly just don't realize how much school that their child missed. And just being extra aware of that, the surprise treat, or I like the popcorn on the playground. My thought was for classes at 100% attendance on a random day and just kind of go down the line, but I like doing the randomly before school starts, motivating stuff after.
Or even if it's like, you know, classes all get an extra 10 minutes on the playground for students that are already on the playground. And anybody coming in goes to their class and, you know, so it's like a small amount of time.
Right.
So that, you know, they're not like sitting there in punishment, but it's like, oh. I
Plus,
just got to
even
come in an
though
extra
they
couple
come
minutes or-
in late. There, if all the kids that arrive on time are out playing and they have to come into the office,
Yeah,
then the whole group starts the lesson at the same time.
Yeah.
And they don't actually feel like a big dummy because they don't know what's going on.
And that's the hardest part is when you start, because like middle grades, they start at their specialties at 8:30, so they've got their 15 minutes. And when you don't come in and you're not regulated and you're not starting with your class, it's so hard to come in and come back and just
Mhm.
essentially be behind. And then that just trickles down and that's the start of their whole day.
Mhm.
So just changing that.
I like that first one, not necessarily as it is, but like a special dance for high attendance.
I think so.
Like
well,
it, because it's
right.
outside
Yeah.
of school, because
Yeah.
it's outside of school, and that's what I liked about it is, you know, like you have a pass to a special event that isn't cutting into the school day or isn't
Yeah.
segregating you. I just wanted to point that out.
What was
Yeah.
the attendance at the last dance? Like,
There were, for middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, yeah, close to, we had over almost 100 students there.
out of what?
We've got well, it's hard, I don't know what just the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade
Yeah.
numbers are.
Well, and
But a lot,
that specific one could be hyped with extra, you know,
right?
neon stuff or things like that, where it's
We're just
a little FOMO. What's that?
Call it dance.
Nord calls theirs a mixer.
Yeah, party, just a party.
Yeah. I like that though. And then, I've got a proposed budget, these are just different handouts again, second place that it's in here. Focusing on the parent communication side of it, so sending everyone a general kind of attendance letter at the beginning of the year, following up mid-year. And then establishing those end of year routines as well. So these would go out to everyone, and then we'd have the truancy letters and the chronic absenteeism letters go out to those specific students. So kind of tier 1, tier 2 level supports.
And I know one of the things that we've discussed and, you know, approved as a board is also utilizing our ability to send students back to the district to be in a school that is in their neighborhood and to have those additional supports that unfortunately charter schools don't have available in resources. And so just, you know, I think also front loading parents with that, like, you know, just so you know, like not as a punitive thing, but like, you know, more on the flip side of that, being here is a privilege, right? And we'd like you to have this privilege, but it is not doing your child or the other students in their class any good, you know, with the disruptions in the missing school, and we want to support your child and your family. So, and like, even not even putting it in a way, like, if you don't show up enough, we're gonna kick you out, but also like, if you need more supports, you have the option to go back to the district school too, like reminding them that, you know, that is also always an option for them to be at a closer school to home if that's.
I don't think the administrator ever followed through on this, but I knew an administrator who had a pretty pointed talk. It was with the high school students about you know, ADA and how it generated funds, and then he committed, but I don't think, like I said, I don't remember he followed through, committed a portion of that, you know, of course, you know, to take us from here to here, I'll give you this much and you can commit it to a school project or a party or a field trip or whatever. And so
we, a couple of years ago, the board passed awards to the classrooms. So that's one of the things that we have changed it a little bit, made it less complicated. It was kind of complicated. It was really cool, but very complicated, so people couldn't figure out where they were.
Yeah.
So just any class that hits 96% will receive $500 to their classroom fund. So then that will be
For what, yeah.
yeah. So, you know, if over an 8-year period, that class could get $4,000 if they have 96% every test year.
That's,
So that's big, you know, we figure our field trip costs run around 14,000 for the year, so. For the, not the year, for the, their 8 years. So that's a significant amount if they can do that, so I think it would be I feel good about that, and then we're also,
I like
as far
that,
as
yeah.
field trips goes, we're also working with
What if
parent
you,
council on their fundraising fund.
what if you had a graduated percentage? Like
That's
you've
what
got
we have.
$100, if you got 92%,
Yeah.
your class got 100. And 200 for 93 and all that.
And we're talking about that too, as far as going from 90 to 90%, 96%, that commitment of $500 per class per year. I'd stay with that, but as far as getting them to the 96%, you know, like, is it $100 if they hit 91%, you know,
Yeah.
something like that, we're also planning, but.
Or maybe you get $100 if you increase by 1%, you get 200 if you increase by 2%, up to $500 if you hit 96%.
Yeah.
shorter term activation of that
Yeah.
too can be helpful to kids.
Where you
like
show
to
up,
see
where
it-
you at.
To see it, we got $50 this quarter and then we got 100.
Yeah,
Or maybe yeah, a monthly score that adds up for the year, or.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh,
Still
we
keep
get
a
a class
monthly
report card,
competition.
or attendance report card.
No.
Not per individual, I mean, by the
Yeah.
class,
Okay.
by the
okay.
class, not by the individual, like your class gets a
Right,
report
don't
card.
make it
like-
teach.
Well, it's pretty similar to the class competition with. the
Yeah.
blue and black. And really just, I think post-COVID this year, they're truly seeing field trips starting to happen, so it's really gonna start clicking for them, and it's going to be a very.
You gotta show up if you
tangible
wanna go.
Reward, yeah, because they're going to see, oh, starting to go back on field trips again, like. This
There's
is,
stuff to miss, yeah.
Yeah.
we need this money, we need this.
No,
figure out.
this is great, and I know we've done a lot of brainstorming here, which is not
This is what we do.
not where we need to be focused tonight, but this is an element.
Being so kind
that we've
so
all been
excited.
very excited, yes.
So the exciting thing for me, one of the exciting things for me about it is the focus on targets. Because, you know, we have, in focusing primarily on attendance, you really don't get in the groove of it until end of October. And tardies we can work on right away, and of course, it's also starting the habit of coming to school and getting them in that first 6 weeks when we really can't talk about whether or not attending, because you know, you can get sick for 3 days and your attendance rate is terrible, and it's because you were.
Right, 3 out of 10 days is
Yeah, it's a
substantial,
lot,
whereas
yes.
3 out of 100 days is not.
Yeah, so that first month and a half is kind of
But that
hard
speaks
for us
to your,
to address low attendance, but it's not hard.
the tardy
to
thing
address targets. So,
might respond to the
But even like
fun
with the
things before
attendance,
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, like. a-
Yeah, I really like the
Well,
idea of the fun things before school. You know, whether it's when the weather is warm, you give watermelon slices or popcorn, cheap treats. Food though, food.
I mean, you could have it be all kinds of stuff, like you could,
yeah.
Balloon volleyball.
That's what I was,
Like 50 balloons.
Yep.
We
Yeah, it
do
could be a
the
specific
middle
game that
schoolers
only
as
gets
they
spread
come
out.
in, if they get here on time, they get a blue, and certain days.
Yeah.
We'll just hand out blue oak leaves just for getting here on
And
time.
thanks
The
for
blue
doing
oak leaves, which is
Oh,
our-
neat.
yeah.
Is that a reward system?
Yeah, it's our reward system, so they'll just for walking in the door on time, they get a blue oak leaf.
I like that this isn't reactionary and it's not a mid-year thing, that it's rolling out for next school year. And it's always helpful, I feel like, as a parent, that it's like, you're going to hear more about attendance, we have some goals. Not like, why do I keep hearing about attendance? Clearly they, you know, it's just helpful when it's framed and it's put into, this is a new goal, yes.
Yeah.
And it's addressed and it's continually you know, this is where we're at, assess, this is some feedback. But it's not something that just, we're having a problem, so we're gonna keep talking about it. But I think it's nice when you start off the school, you're going to see some new things around attendance because we have some goals.
Good idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's intentional
Yes.
versus reactionary.
One of the other things, because kids like competition, you have this year's stats. You can tell the eighth graders, last year's eighth grade attendance was X%, see if you can beat it. You know, because then it's like, ooh, can we beat the class that was the year before us this year, you know, and then it's like,
Competition is big now.
and then it's not just, then it's kind of also, you know, like, yes, there's competition amongst each other in the, you know, each class, but it's also like, can you set,
The bar higher.
yeah, can you like push that up from
Yeah.
last year to this year?
Mhm.
You know, and it can be from their own class last year, but I think it's fun to like, can you do better than the
Graduate.
7th grade from last year? Can you do better than?
Well, and cycling back a little bit, even adding some of the parent pieces and the knowledge into the first 2 days, the registration days
Mhm.
at the attendance table and putting them out there. And the no tardies start September 1st. So there's a fluff period. There's 1 to 2 weeks beforehand that we can really push in and use some of the before school incentives just to really drive home the fact that we want you here. It's a transition. We know we've had 2 months off for summer, but we really want you here. We want to see you here.
Mhm.
And hopefully just start the year on a positive note, so we can start off high and get higher.
Mhm.
And then hopefully not have to be reactionary or as reactionary.
That would be fun in like the first couple of weeks of school, like real early on, doing like a random fun morning and then announcing like, we're gonna be doing these randomly throughout the whole year. And if you're here, you get to participate,
They will be fully shocked.
you know, because if you kick that off super early in the year and then it's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna randomly start doing these like right before school. Right, it's like, wait a second, like all year? Well, I'm just gonna have to come every day.
Well, yeah, and then the extra 10 minutes, if you're there, you know.
Yeah.
Then
Then getting
starts
them-
10 minutes later unless you're tardy and then you're going straight to the class.
I'm going to order 50 little flashlights that say, you light up our school just by being here, Blue Oak School.
Thank you.
That's so
That's
cute.
Good.
Except I can't get the logo to cooperate, so I
Uh,
get Chelsea to do that, because I want the logo on it.
I have a better resource that can help you to do that. Her name's Alex. She's sitting right over there and at least 10 years younger than me, probably closer to 20 years
Okay.
younger than me. She is well, much more qualified at that.
So I'm open to any and all ideas that you guys can think of, and then as we get through the start of next year, any feedback, input, and then I eventually will have students helping to lead this journey and drive and team.
Yeah, nice.
Well,
Can you come back in September?
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah,
Just tell us how it's going on.
for sure, I can have, the students can tell you how it's going on too.
Oh, that'd be
So
great.
speaking of student support, one of the other things that you might do is like a buddy party or something like that, where like, because I know in the past they've done like big buddies and little buddies. And then if there's like having something where they come together, then it's like, okay, well, you let your buddy down. If you're not, and you don't necessarily like frame it that way, but it's that feeling of like, well, I have to be there for my buddy. You know, and then it's like, well, I have to be there because my big buddy's I get to hang out with my big buddy on that day, or, you know, whatever.
They
Like have,
thrive on this buddy days.
Mhm.
Love it.
and then, you know, carefully selecting buddies based on like who pairs well together and it's encouraging to like, come for buddy time tomorrow, or like Thursday's buddy day. You know, or whatever the day
Well,
that,
and traditionally we do buddies in the afternoon at the end of the day, even just switching.
sometime.
Well, thank you for all of the thoughts,
Thank you.
feedback, ideas.
You too.
And I can have Alex link it into everything so you guys can comment straight in or whatever you may think. Yeah, and then hopefully well, for sure, come this time next year, we will have students sitting and really presenting.
Excellent.
presenting this.
And that's the greatest. It's always the most impactful when it's their own. Awesome.
That would be.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? for Amanda?
Any more?
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Questions, not comments. We've commented enough. Comments are closed. Does anybody have questions? If you have further comments, email her.
Reach out.
I'll call her, get together, bring her coffee. All right. Okay, well, hearing none. We should have actually pulled this in agenda modification.
We
because
should have. I just
We did the
realized
same
that.
thing last meeting, so we do not have a closed session item for tonight. We will not be holding closed session. That will take us to item 7, our next meeting, Tuesday, May 16th at 6 p.m.
All right.
And then on to our adjournment.